So in this video, I want to go ahead and provide an update in regards to Tesla stock, as I haven't done one in quite a while, and also have a conversation in regards to the Cybertrucks, as we have a new development that I wanted to go ahead and touch on. Now, recently another YouTuber who frequently flies a drone over the Gigafactory in Texas came out with this image right over here, which is an absolutely beautiful image. I mean, I absolutely love to see this. And what we see is just a plethora of Cybertrucks lined up. Now, the reason why this is important, and of course we're going to go ahead and touch on how this is going to influence Tesla stock, but essentially in the past we've heard Elon Musk mention how there's this aim of delivering 250,000 units starting in 2025. And so it's definitely a positive thing to see the production of Cybertrucks start to get ramped up. And we've heard Elon Musk in the past mention how the Cybertrucks don't have a demand issue, it's really a production issue. And so seeing that we're having a lot of Cybertrucks being produced, well, this is gonna help with the deliveries in the next few quarters, which is why I'm optimistic in the long term, or partially optimistic in the long term with just the delivery numbers. We'll go ahead and touch on that further in this video, so I encourage you guys to watch this video in its entirety. But I wanted to point out to these two recent videos that came out from a big YouTuber highlighting how the Tesla Cybertruck is a bit inferior in comparison to the Ford F-150s when it comes to towing, and some other stress tests that were done in this video, and how this video is kind of souring up the sentiment for Cybertrucks. And of course, we already know that there's this big dichotomy between the appeal for the Cybertrucks, where you have a lot of individuals who absolutely love the Cybertruck, but then you also have a lot of individuals who hate it and they think it's a dumpster, right? Of course, I'm on the side of, I think it's actually a cool truck, but I want to go ahead and talk about why this doesn't really mean much. And I don't think it's going to stifle the demand of the Tesla Cybertrucks. And we already have talked about in the past how for those who actually use their trucks for work, the Cybertruck isn't going to provide that much utility strictly from a range perspective, right? Because of course, if you have a job and you have to go to a job site that's 130 miles away, well, you don't want to have to go ahead and then charge your truck for an hour and then head home, right? In comparison to an internal combustion engine truck, where you could just go ahead and do your job, fill up with gas in 5 minutes, and then come back. And so we already talked about that in the past, but the reality is, even though the Cybertruck may not be of much utility from a range perspective, or even a towing perspective, or durability perspective, after seeing these recent viral videos, the truth is, and this is kind of gonna, blow away a lot of people's minds, or maybe some people already know this, most people who drive pickup trucks don't actually use them for any like towing purposes. In fact, we have this article over here highlighting how there was a study done on how most pickup truck owners don't actually use their trucks for any towing. Now, this study was conducted by Axios, and while it was a small sample size, let's take a look at the numbers over here. And here we see how often do pickup truck owners use their vehicles for various tasks, and we see that a large majority of it is for shopping, errands, and pleasure driving, and how most drivers of pickup trucks, they drive it for kind of that powerful, rugged feeling, and not really for any utility of actually towing vehicles. And this is what I see from my perspective as well. And again, this is just a anecdotal, kind of situation here, but every time I drive on the road and I see a pickup truck, I don't see it towing anything. I don't see much work going on, and I pretty much just see pickup trucks on the road just doing their thing, just driving without anything on the hitch of it, right? And so, maybe in your part of the world or the country that you're in, or, whatever state that you're in, you may see, pickup trucks actually being used for towing purposes, but I can tell you that from my perspective, I rarely see it. You guys let me know in the comment section below, but that's kind of what I see. Also, what I do see is that the Cybertrucks are pretty popular, right? Despite that there's this big controversial opinion on them of looking horrible, every time I drive on the road, I see a Cybertruck every single day. Not even kidding. And I made a video about this, talking about this in the past, how in Florida, I see Cybertrucks all the time. And someone one time commented, well, how do you know they're not the same car? Well, I don't know if you guys know this, but people who own Cybertrucks, they tend to customize them. So I see them in crazy colors: purple, green, red, orange. And maybe that's just a Florida thing. Who knows, right? And I see, of course, different decals. So it's kind of obvious that it's not the same truck, unless someone's paying money to do this. But it's very unlikely. But regardless, the reality is that I believe the Cybertrucks, even if they're inferior to the Ford F-150s in comparison to what they can do for utility purposes, there's still going to be a lot of demand for the Cybertrucks regardless. And I think it's just going to be because of its looks, right? It's a very unique look, and it's kind of like Lamborghinis, right? Lamborghinis look very nice. Now, I have a few buddies of mine that drive Lamborghinis and a few other cars, and they complain about how they hate their Lamborghinis because some of the things that they often say is the rear view mirror. It's hard to see anything from the back of it. It's really low. It's honestly not as comfortable. The technology is kind of horrible in comparison to their other vehicles like McLarens or any other vehicle. And so essentially, people buy Lamborghinis, and even though they're not the best car, people buy them because of this appeal of them being unique. You see a Lamborghini, you're like, hey, that's a Lamborghini. You see a Cybertruck, you're like, hey, that's a Cybertruck. And so going back into how this actually ties into Tesla stock, right? I know we kind of talked a little bit about the trucks, but how this actually ties into Tesla stock is that I believe that we're still going to have a lot of demand for these Cybertrucks, regardless if maybe they aren't as good as the Ford F-150s, and that Tesla ramping up the production is going to help with the fundamentals. Now here's where we get back to the stock talk, right? Because when we take a look at the difference in Tesla deliveries from Q1 and Q2 of 2024 versus Q1 and Q2 of 2023, we see that in the United States, Europe, China, the numbers are down. However, I think the Cybertrucks are going to be the hero and pretty much save the delivery numbers in America and significantly improve with many more deliveries, as again there's this huge demand for the Cybertrucks, and now that there's going to have this huge ramping of production, we're likely to see a lot more deliveries in the United States, and that's good. That bodes very well, and I think that yes, for the next few quarters, we're not going to see that reflected into the actual fundamentals of the company. But I believe that in 2025 Q2, we're going to see Cybertrucks make a significance of a difference in terms of delivery numbers, and on top of that, we know that we're going into a rate cutting environment. Now, of course, we still haven't had rate cuts at the time of this video, but for months I told those within the Push and Profit private group that we're likely to get rate cuts in September, and we just had the meeting with Fed Chairman Jerome Powell from the Jackson Hole Symposium, and he kind of alluded that rate cuts are likely to come. And so this is going to provide kind of this macro element that's going to go ahead and benefit deliveries for Tesla. And so while right now it's not the greatest time, I think in the future, going into 2025, we're going to have a significance of improvements in terms of the actual fundamentals for the business for Tesla once we start to see those interest rates actually make an impact and actually change what's going on in the economy. Because of course, once you have interest rates changing, either hiked or cut, it does take time for those changes in monetary policy to actually have any significant ramifications to what's going on in the economy. And so we're kind of moving into a positive area. Now, recently in the video that I made about Tesla, right, this was, I say recently, but this was a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned how I was actually trimming my position in Tesla and actually adding more to NVIDIA. And I got a lot of hate, by the way, but I actually got people emailing to me, upset of what I'm doing with my portfolio. But let's take a look at what recently happened after I made that change. For example, we see here, Tesla pretty much hit this peak of 220 and went a little bit higher, fell down, and then ultimately is right back at 220. So that was exactly what I said in that previous video was likely to take place. And if we take a look at NVIDIA, we see that NVIDIA climbed up a bit higher. Now, of course, this is just me being right in the short term. It doesn't mean that I'm going to be right in the long term. I just think it's insane, wild, and crazy that individuals got mad that I was trimming my Tesla portfolio to go ahead and add into Nvidia. I'm just more optimistic about Nvidia currently. By the way, we also have Nvidia's earnings coming out later this week, but simply because Nvidia is the main beneficiary of these of this AI play, and it's going to benefit from all these companies still investing in chips, including Tesla, which is what Elon Musk mentioned in his last earnings call. You know, they're still doing this investment in their chips, and so I'm still very bullish on Nvidia, but it doesn't mean I'm bearish on Tesla. I was just trimming and rebalancing my portfolio, which again, you guys are free to do whatever you see value in. That was just kind of my opinion and what we're doing. Now, of course, I want to go ahead and highlight what we have going forward for this week, as we kind of talked about how I'm bullish on Tesla in the long term, 2025 as well. But I want to go ahead and talk about what we're having coming up in the short term now. For example, if we take a look at this week's macro events, or events taking place, we see here on Friday we had the PCE data coming out, which is the personal consumer expenditure report, and that's basically an inflationary gauge, and we're likely to see inflation, again, the trend of it, continue to fall down, which is going to bode well for markets, especially as we are very optimistic of a cut for September. But you know what? I think this video doesn't need to be any more longer than it needs to be. I'll actually provide a more deeper analysis of Tesla stock for those within the Push and Profit private group. It's going to be one of the links in the description down below. But you guys, let me know in the comment section, what are your thoughts on this Cybertruck and how Tesla is going to perform in 2025? And with that said, before you guys go, make sure to check out this video right over here, and I'll see you guys on that next video. Take care, guys.